Hi, this is Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and I'm here today with ACBA recipient Tammy Schlador from Tempe, Arizona. Hi, Tammy.
Hello.
Hi, so grateful to have you here. We've been chit-chatting a bit before we started, and I've gotten to hear kind of bits of the journey you've been on, but I'm really excited to get the full details. You have like 20 to 25 years of business analyst experience. Could you just kind of take us back to where you were 3 to 4 years ago when you started the Blueprint program?
Yes, I was just started a position at a steel foundry as a business analyst, and this company wasn't real big on BA processes, and they really considered the lack of bureaucracy a bonus. And I was really struggling. I was struggling because even though I'd been a a business analyst for a long time, I never had the formal training, like real specific training, but I was also finding that the projects that I was working on, I'd get done with them and then the projects didn't really go anywhere, and or I would get started on them, but I really couldn't find the business anyone who was willing to help me get going. And I'm like, I'm doing this for you. So I was really struggling with all of this. So then I'm like, you know what? This company has an amazing training program. So, or, they budget for it is huge. And so I went off looking and I found Bridging the Gap. And I'm like, and then I went asking, can I take these classes? And they're like, yeah, go ahead. No problem. So that's where I started. And the first class I took was the BA Blueprint class.
Mhm.
So,
And so you were looking to kind of formalize your experience, and it sounds like be a little bit supported in an environment that didn't really have a lot of support for business analysts. Yeah.
right. And so in the blueprint class, one of my big wows out of that class was the process map, how you actually create a process map, a visual display process. And when I got done with or through the class and working on my project, it was like, wow, this is awesome because my process is now so clear, and it made me find the gaps and the missing pieces, and it just forced me into a better process. And through that, I had to pick a process, a project that I was working on. And I picked one that I was really struggling with at the time. And it was awesome because I had to figure out the process was we make molds out of silica sand. And we had to move them from the area where you make the molds into the area where the melted metal gets poured into them. And the molds they're huge, about the size of a car. So where you put them and moving them around wasn't easy. And so we had to be careful. And I had to figure out how to do it better. And I was told, people smarter than you have tried this and failed. And I'm like, wow, no pressure here. So I worked with all the people that were involved. And in the end, I finally understood what the constraints were and I knew why it was failing. And it wasn't there. That wasn't the problem. It was upstream. It was the things that were happening. Decisions were made upstream in the process. And the business said, yeah, we don't want to change that process. And I'm like, oh, all right then. So I didn't fix the problem, but I was able to talk intelligently about what the constraints were and why it was what it was.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure you had done process maps before this.
Oh yeah.
So, like, what was the difference? Like, what was the gap for you that got filled there?
Part of it was who is doing what. Most of my process maps were simply just what and
Hmm.
not who was doing them. And often it was once you actually stopped and said, who is doing what, it was like, oh, this is not just one step. This is like 6 steps with decision trees that have to get put in there. And that's the piece that was because the aha moment, that when I got done with it, it's like I a process was, especially one that I wasn't familiar with, right? It's different when it's something you do in day out, but when you have to come into a new business, new process, and to understand it, when you're forced into the who and the what, and it's just one action for each box, that it's like, wow,
Yeah.
okay, I know what's happening now.
Yeah. And it's often like it's those little tweaks, and people can our participants sometimes can feel like we're being a bit sticklerish. That's not a real word, but right, with like how we review things and the feedback we give. But it is because those tweaks challenge your thinking, right, and help you
They
see
do.
things. And now you have that you just, I'm sure it's natural for you, right? There's no
It
question. It's
is.
always who and then what. Yeah,
Always, yes.
that's awesome. Do you have any other takeaways from like maybe the use cases or data modeling module that you want to talk about?
And then the use cases, I've never even ever done that before.
Mhm.
And so that was actually kind of fun. I've not ever really used it again because I haven't needed to and stuff, but it was still just stretching the mind on another way to look at how to look at a business process.
Mhm.
And data modeling was that I have used, and that has really helped me with having even just the format on how to lay it out and how to present the data to somebody else. That part's been really good and helpful with newer projects.
Yeah, and I don't think we spoke or shared this yet, but you are a SAP business analyst, right? So you have
Yes.
SAP expertise as well as business analysis. So I can imagine the data comes up with like maybe integrating systems or moving systems into SAP. Like how does it come up for you, the data modeling specifically?
Yeah, so the ERD where it shows the systems coming in and out, especially uh I've had ones where you're trying to understand where the data, like where the primary set of data is, and then where it's leaving and where it's coming back. And sometimes it's just one direction. And so having that diagram is even helped just me understand the flow of all the information and what's most important. And then also um, the
Like the
one that
data dictionaries or
the data,
mappings?
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
The data dictionary for that, there's been times when I've had to design new tables that have to be used for a program. And so having that process and those tools have made it so much simpler that I just kind of fill in all the blanks. I know exactly what kind of information I'm going to need to give to a programmer or to somebody else to actually implement it without them coming back asking me, is that a number? Is that a text? What do you want it to look like? All of that just made it the first time and out. And especially in my last job where the programmers were in China. So there's a whole 24-hour turnaround on any question that gets asked. It cut down all the questions and they were able to just produce what it was that I needed.
Yeah, that's awesome. It does. It gets you to a lot of detail for sure. That data modeling, that data
It
map,
does.
but it's necessary in a big system like that because otherwise the data just kind of disappears into the ether.
Right.
Yeah. So, you were one of our very first ACBA recipients. So, you took the blueprint a few years ago, and then in 2020, late 2020, early 21, became an ACBA recipient by taking the BA Essentials, which is now
Mhm.
module 4 of the blueprint. So, do you want to talk a little bit about that experience? And I know you had a lot of ahas and kind of great feedback around the process and how that affected even the business that you were in. And then we'll get to talk about your new job too.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, the BA Essentials was my favorite class out of all the ones that I did. And that one, I would work on projects and there were times when I knew what I was doing, but I would feel a little lost at times, or sometimes I wondered, what am I missing? Or why isn't this flowing as easily as it should? And after the 8-step BA essential process, when I learned all of that and I started at the very beginning and worked my way through it, it was like, oh, I feel like I'm actually in control, which is, control is only so much what it is, but I still felt like I knew the steps. I was very clear, and then I could communicate with the rest of the team on what my expectations were and get clarity on what the business needed and the whole scope document. And even having that clearly defined and signed off. It was like, wow. And I would just bring everyone into a room and say, okay, we need to discuss what it is you really want, and then to get them to sign off. And when you get them to sign off, it gives a lot more responsibility on them to be really clear on what they want, because they realize, oh, this is all she's going to do.
Right.
So but it also, at the same time, I got business support at the very beginning, and I actually generated a whole lot of positive energy around the project where people got excited about it, where before they just kind of acted like, well, you're just going to go off and do, and then you'll tell me at the very end. And which was disheartening, because in the very end, you're there. Sometimes you get the, oh, that's what you did. And I'm like, well, that's what you told me, or that's what was documented. And
Yeah.
so with the new 8-step process, I'm able to actually get better buy-in at the front end, to get the positive energy through it. And then at the very end, people are like, oh, this is wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like just increased engagement all throughout, as opposed to feeling like you kind of have to figure it out on your own, right? And then hope it's
Yes.
right. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In the last company I worked at, did not encourage user engagement throughout a project, which
But
I
you were
didn't.
able to like work around that though.
I was, and I was actually, yeah, and I was able to push the user engagement in a way that drew them in. And also my boss even said, wow, this project is going really well.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your new opportunity now as well.
Yeah, so I'm working in a pharmaceutical company, which is very different than a steel foundry. It's my first time ever in pharmaceuticals. And I had to go through a very rigorous interview process with many different people. And while 75% of the interview was my SAP knowledge, to make sure I actually knew what SAP was and how it worked, 25% was really about business analysis processes. And I felt like I was being quizzed through it. But I knew I got the answers right when you see the manager shaking his head and smiling. And a lot of it was around the functional spec, around a scope document, getting user requirements documented, getting the user to sign off on it, staying on a timeline through, which is part of the 8 steps, is having a very clear timeline that goes through the whole process. And all of that was part of the interview process. And I just feel like I nailed it. And I don't believe that I could have done that without going through both the essentials class and the blueprint class, trying to, I said that bad.
It's all good.
So yeah, going through the BA essentials class and going through the blueprint class, I was able to just nail the interview through all of that.
Yeah, you mentioned too, like that you knew the term, like it was a terminology, like you kind of intuitively you knew it before, but like having the coursework helped you really have more confidence, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Like in the past, I know I've fumbled through some of those questions, and I felt like I knew the answer, but I just wasn't communicating it clearly enough. And you just see on the face of like, I'm not sure if she really understands what she's doing. And with the right terminology and the confidence, I was able to very confidently answer the questions. And I know that's what managers are looking for.
Yeah, for sure. And how did they find you? Did they find you on LinkedIn?
They did. They found me on LinkedIn. They sent me a message, and when I first got the message, I was like, yeah, I'm missing this and this. And they responded back with, well, do you have X, Y, and Z? I'm like, yes. And like, we want to talk to you. And I'm like, all right, let's talk.
Yeah.
And I did update my LinkedIn profile recently. And there's 2 things that I did on it. One was answering my why, what my passion, what moves me. And my why is, my passion is to create environments that are logical and intuitive by working to solve problems and improve systems and processes with innovative ideas. So
Mm.
that's on there. And then also about the same time, I completed the ACBA and I put that on my LinkedIn profile and promoted it as well. And after those two changes, every week I get people sending me messages for new leads. And now the positions are much more business analysis centric, which is awesome because that's what I want to do. And before, a lot of them were more technical functional positions that I wasn't really qualified for. So
Mm.
now I'm actually getting the right leads being asked, which makes
Yeah.
me feel really good.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome to like, I mean, so many people are out trying to like find that right opportunity, right? And they actually
Mhm.
found you on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I wasn't looking. I was hoping. I was wanting to move on, but I wasn't actively looking when it came knocking.
Yeah.
And
And
then
you almost said no. You're like, I miss these things, right?
right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yes. And yeah. And so with my the job at the steel foundry, it bumped my salary up into the six-figure salary.
Yeah.
And I got good raises while I was there. But this new job, I thought I would push a little on the envelope, but I thought I was pushing on the envelope. And I asked for a 20% raise. And the manager didn't even bat an eye. He just
Mhm.
like, yeah, that's within our salary range. And I'm like, oh, all right.
That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
What has that like what has being in the new company, having that kind of salary, like what has all that meant to you?
It has been amazing. First off, I'm able to do some things and plan some vacations. Of course, still waiting for COVID to calm
Yeah.
down a little bit more. But I have some amazing vacations with my family planned with the extra money. And with the new position, I have a boss who is amazingly supportive and who respects me and trusts me. And the change has just been amazing. I feel like a whole new person with this new job.
And I feel like I can testify to that because we were in webinars together even just a few months ago. And your energy is just amazing and you seem really happy. So it's great
Thank
to
you.
see that. It's great to see that. Any final question, any words of wisdom for somebody looking to follow in your footsteps?
I would say that even with my 20 plus years of experience doing business analysis work, this class, this training has just stepped up my game and helped me more. And it doesn't matter how long you've been doing something, you can still continue to learn and grow and become better. And that's what I was looking for. And that's what I found. And even now that I finished my ACBA, I'm not done learning. I'm not done growing. I am
Yeah,
still continuing that journey.
yeah, definitely. It's a learning profession. So thank
It
you so
is.
much. Thank you for sharing that, Tammy, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Really, and congratulations.
Thank you.